So, all righty, we're recording. So thanks for coming today, everybody. My name is Linda Adams. I am a dietitian. I work for Staff and Faculty Health and Wellbeing. And we are happy to have you participate in our programs. We do webinars, we do the diabetes prevention program, we have a lot of stress resilience resources, we have some financial wellness resources, some physical activity, lots of stuff. And you can find all of those on wellbeing.ucdavis.edu and let us know if there's anything that you would like us to do. Today, we are having a guest. Her name is Emma Keys, and she graduated from UC Davis with a degree in clinical nutrition, and she is now completing her hours towards the registered dietitian credential through a dietetic internship. So we're really lucky to have Emma come back to campus and share some of the current events in nutrition and some persisting myths. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Emma. Emma, thank you for joining us today.
Of course. Hi, everyone. I can't see any of you, but it would be great to see all of you. Thanks so much for joining. I had a lot of fun putting together this Nutrition Mythbusters presentation. I hope you guys learned something from it. And also, please feel free to use the chat box. I know some of you have already put some comments in the chat box. So feel free to add in any questions or comments that you have throughout. Linda will be monitoring that. So I'll do my best to answer those, Linda too. So without further ado, I'm just going to get started now. All right, for our first myth. Myth number 1, eating egg yolks will raise your cholesterol. I think this is a pretty common misconception still to this day. But the truth is that, yes, egg yolks have about 186 milligrams of cholesterol per egg. The yolk is a very rich source of other nutrients. So very important nutrients like choline, which is great for brain health, mood regulation, disease-fighting antioxidants like zeaxanthin, lutein, and then those omega-3 fatty acids, which are great for heart health. So recent studies indicate that dietary sources of cholesterol actually have a minimal impact in blood cholesterol. So the cholesterol that we eat in food does not necessarily translate to that cholesterol in our body. There was actually an interesting study in 2018 suggesting that for those with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, regularly eating about 1 to 2 eggs per day might improve their fasting blood glucose levels and prevent the progression of prediabetes to type 2. So it's a really important study. And as with all foods, consume eggs in moderation. Maybe not eating, 5 eggs a day is recommended, but 1 or 2 eggs a day is perfectly safe. Wanted to share this great illustration, an example of all the extra benefits of eggs. So there are plenty of nutrients in the entire egg. That's why it's important to also eat the egg yolk. As you can see, there is zinc, calcium. For those who are plant-based or vegetarian, there's a great source of iron in eggs. You see there's biotin, vitamin A, omega-3, omega-6. So you're getting a lot of good nutrients when you eat the whole egg. Questions, Linda? All right, so let's move on to myth number 2. And this is that organic produce is healthier than conventional. So in terms of nutrient content, just nutrient content, there's really no significant difference between organic versus conventional produce, okay? But with organic foods, they do typically have less pesticide residue compared to conventional. And these pesticides, according to some studies, might potentially have a harmful impact on human health, but there's plenty of research that still needs to be done in order to let the public know that, you should absolutely not be consuming, conventional produce. The evidence is just not conclusive yet. So whether you're eating conventional or organic, please just eat your fruits and vegetables. That is what's most important. And for many people, organic produce might not actually be accessible or budget friendly. So like I said, eating your fruits and veggies in general is what's important, and people aren't getting enough. The CDC mentions that only 1 in 10 individuals actually eat enough fruits and vegetables. I thought that was kind of shocking. So like I said, just choose what fits best in your lifestyle. If you feel safer eating organic foods, that is your prerogative. So just do what works best for you. I wanted to include this because I wasn't sure if someone would have a question about 2021's Clean 15 list. So the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, provides a list of the Clean 15 or the Dirty Dozen. So if you are concerned about pesticides but can't afford to go organic, you can stick to this Clean 15 list and refer back to it. So these are the fruits and veggies with the least pesticide residues. You can see avocados are number 1. You see pineapples on there, cabbage, cantaloupes, kiwis. So just wanted to include this if you are concerned about pesticides. Okay, myth number 3, detox or cleanse diets are the best way to get rid of toxins. So sure, most of you have heard of detox or cleanse diets, and many of you have maybe tried them before. But just to give a brief overview, the idea behind a detox or cleanse diet is that it kind of gives your digestive system a break. And when you reintroduce those whole foods back in, it allows your digestive system to better absorb nutrients. That's the idea behind it. But most of us with digestive systems, they do that job for us already. Our bodies naturally detox. So specific organs like your liver, kidneys, skin, they're responsible for breaking down toxins. And the best way to ensure that your digestive system is working properly is to eat enough whole foods that contain that good fiber and staying hydrated, drinking enough water, just to make sure that our digestive systems are working properly. Just a quick point though, restrictive cleanses or diets could potentially lead to more harm than good in the long term. But in the short term, they could cause fatigue, dehydration, headaches, maybe electrolyte loss or nausea. So just keep that in mind. All right, so our next myth, myth number 4, is that a gluten-free diet is great for weight loss. So I think this was a pretty popular like fad diet maybe a few years ago. I think it's died off a little though, but just to give a brief overview, a gluten-free diet is basically excludes any foods that contain gluten. So gluten is found in wheat and other grains. And so for those who have celiac disease, a wheat allergy, or have gluten sensitivity, it's absolutely necessary to follow that. But for those who don't need to follow a gluten-free diet, you absolutely don't need to. If you follow the gluten-free diet, you may lose weight, but that would just be typically as a result of cutting out a lot of carbohydrate containing foods. So it would be as a result of consuming fewer calories. There's no magic result when you follow a gluten-free diet. So if you don't have an intolerance, enjoy your gluten and make sure to make half of your plate whole grains, as they are a great source of micronutrients and fiber. Okay, moving on to myth number 5, and that is that fresh vegetables are more nutritious than frozen. So when it comes down to nutrient content, frozen vegetables and fresh vegetables basically have the same nutrition content. And frozen vegetables are great because they are typically picked within peak ripeness and frozen shortly after. So the nutrient losses are minimal there. Vegetables that are frozen do typically undergo a blanching process. And in that, there is a small loss of water-soluble vitamins like vitamin C. But frozen vegetables are another great option because they're cheaper. You can store them for a long time. And one study I read said that nutrients don't typically start to break down until after a year of storing them. And even at that point, the nutrient losses are still minimal. So frozen or frozen or fresh. Just choose what you like better. Choose what fits best in your life.
Emma,
Yeah.
do you have any comments about cooked vegetables versus raw vegetables?
Yeah, so cooked versus raw. There is some debate whether there are some nutrient losses. When you cook vegetables, sometimes the nutrients are better absorbed, but also in some others, I think that the nutrients might break down. Lynn, I'm not sure if you could better expand on that. I think I'm getting my veggies confused here.
Well, and heat, light, air, and water are the things that degrade nutrients. And so if you think about using any of those, then you're going to see a little bit of nutrient loss. Like Emma said earlier, it's usually not significant. So like it's better to eat any kind. So if you like them cooked or you like them raw, either way, it's a good way to include them. So I don't know that there's really a benefit over either one.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Mhm.
So wherever your vegetables are coming from, it's just great that you're eating them.
Sorry,
Okay.
Emma.
Oh,
Gonna interrupt one more time. So steaming versus boiling.
so I think that's probably a similar answer, depending on, or in terms of nutrient loss, it'll probably be about the same. And if that, it'll be probably minimal. So like I said, really, if you're steaming or boiling or cooking or roasting your vegetables, the nutrient loss is going to be minimal. And bottom line, however you prepare your vegetables is pretty good. Okay. Let's move on to myth number 6. I actually saw that it's just a comment. Okay. So myth number 6 is that vegetarian diets don't get enough protein. And that's not true. Actually, Americans seem to get more protein than necessary. So we're definitely meeting our needs in America for protein. And if you think, or if you feel like you want to go plant-based, there are plenty of great options for you. So just a reference, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics recommends a minimum daily protein intake of 0.36 grams per pound of body weight, and per kilograms, that's 0.8 grams. So just for a reference, cooked chicken, about a half cup, has roughly 21 grams of protein. Seitan, which is made from hydrated wheat gluten. So I'm not sure if any of you have tried that before, but it's pretty hefty in protein. So with just a third cup of seitan, it's 21 grams of protein. So that's a good plant-based option for you. Lentils coming in at 8.84 grams of protein per half cup. Tofu, another good source, it's 10 grams of protein per half cup. And then almonds, that's a lot of almonds, a half cup, but still it's 16.5 grams of protein. Just wanted to include this cool visual to the right here, just showing that I know that for plant-based sources of protein, the absorption of iron might be slightly less than animal sources. So if that's a concern for you, at the top here, we have all of these plant-based sources of iron. Pair these with a vitamin C containing food, and that can actually boost your absorption. So if you pair some tofu, maybe with a side of cooked bell peppers and broccoli, that can help boost your absorption of iron. So just a fun fact there. Okay. Our next myth number 7, is that eating in the evening causes weight gain. My mom used to think this. And I feel like a lot of people might still think this because there's some research that states eating at night causes weight gain, or eating snacks in the evening can increase your weight. And yes, some studies have shown that eating at night is associated with weight gain, but that's because when you eat in the evening, sometimes you're consuming more calorie dense food. So that could be because you're not eating enough during the day. Maybe you're skipping breakfast and you're just a lot hungry in the evening, and your body's trying to make up for those lost calories. So Humans break down food basically the same 24/7. We have the capability to break down those nutrients all the time. And for most people, eating after 7 is not a problem if you're eating adequately for your lifestyle. If you happen to get home from commuting at 8 p.m. and you have to eat dinner, then please do so. Just stick to what works best for you and your schedule. Okay, myth number 8 is that eating fat directly increases body fat. I can see why you might be confused about this, but fat is essential. It is an essential macronutrient, and eating dietary fat does not automatically convert to body fat. So fat really helps us regulate hormone production. It promotes healthy cell growth. It helps us feel full and satisfied. And there's another important role of fat, and that's to help us absorb those fat-soluble vitamins that you might find in leafy green veggies. So if you're having a salad, that's why it's important to add some fat-containing dressing, because that helps absorb vitamin A, D, E, and K. Choose heart-healthy fats like avocado, nuts, seeds. And just as a reminder, the Dietary Guidelines of America recommends that no more than 10% of calories come from saturated fat. There's no cap, though, for other fats like unsaturated or monounsaturated, polyunsaturated. But for saturated fat, just make sure you are aware that there's a 10% recommendation that no more than 10% calories come from that. So just as a reference, a 2,000 calorie diet, that would be about 22 grams of saturated fat per day. So myth number 9 is that dairy is bad for our health. This is not true because dairy can definitely be included in a healthy, balanced diet. And if you can tolerate dairy, it has so many benefits like vitamin D, protein, calcium, phosphorus. And we were just talking about saturated fat. So interesting enough, with saturated fat in dairy, there have been several studies concluding that even though it is high in saturated fat, the consumption of it induces a positive or neutral effect on human cardiovascular health. So they're not entirely sure why this is. It could be the other benefits of dairy, the other nutrients that play into it. So just keep that in mind. And then if you are looking to switch from a lactose-based milk, a dairy milk, to a plant-based milk, it's something that could happen is that you miss out on nutrients. So maybe you're missing out on some protein or calcium, but the best thing for you to do is read those labels. So almond milk might be fortified with calcium. So another thing to keep in mind. Okay, myth number 10 is that carbohydrates make you gain weight. So this is not true because there's no one food that causes weight gain. It really comes down to the amount of foods that you're consuming. So if you're eating an excess amount of carbohydrates, then it's possible that you could gain some weight. But just for your own reference, we know that 45 to 65% of our daily energy should come from carbohydrates. And that might seem like a lot for a 2,000 calorie diet. That's around 225 to 325 grams. But that's about how much you need. I mean, that is our brain's main source of energy. And it's true that many refined carbohydrates, they contain less fiber, they might contain excess calories and sugar. So just be mindful of those. And so the Dietary Guidelines of America does recommend making half of your plate whole grains like brown rice, whole grain pasta. Okay, so myth number 11 is that diet soda is healthier than regular soda. Still, there needs to be more studies done on this, and I'm sure there are many in the works. But current evidence is basically saying that while diet soda might seem like a healthier option, there is a growing body of evidence suggesting that consuming diet soda on a regular basis might influence some liver problems, heart conditions, metabolic issues. But findings are just not yet conclusive, so we can't say for sure. Something that's interesting, though, is that drinking diet soda regularly might increase a person's craving of sweets. If you're looking for a fizzy drink, by all means, drink your Diet Coke. But if you want another option, you could always try sparkling water with some added fruit flavoring. Okay, myth number 12 is that canola oil is bad for our health. So canola oil is a good source of monounsaturated fats, has a low amount of saturated fats, lower than any other cooking oil, can be heated to a variety of temperatures. It's a very versatile oil, but the way it's manufactured could be a concern for some people. There are scientific studies that really can't say that there's a clear link between consuming GMOs and poor health outcomes. So just keep that in mind. There is no conclusive evidence stating that we shouldn't be consuming these foods. Nutrition reviews found that replacing saturated fat with canola oil appears to be helpful in lowering total cholesterol and LDL. With canola oil, it factually has a higher omega-6 fatty acid content. Omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids are both important for our health, but there is an ideal consumption ratio, and that is 1-to-1. So if you want to consume more omega-3s, look for sources like fish, nuts, and seeds, and a good omega-3 to omega-6 ratioed oil would be olive oil. Just wanted to include this slide if you're looking to increase the amount of omega-3 fatty acids that you consume. Some good sources include salmon, flaxseed, walnut, even plant-based sources like spinach, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts. So just for your information. Right, any comments, questions? Okay, so myth number 13 is that anti-nutrients are harmful. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of anti-nutrients. They're pretty interesting though. So they're found in many plant-based foods and animal products. And they might decrease or block the absorption of some nutrients. So the purpose of them in plant-based foods is to protect the plants from bacterial or fungal infections. And some of these anti-nutrients that you might have heard of are called tannins, found in tea, coffee, and beans. They can potentially decrease iron absorption. Phytates, these are found in whole grains, legumes, nuts. They can bind to certain nutrients again and prevent absorption. Lectins, this is another common one, found in beans and soybeans. And then oxalates, these are found in green leafy vegetables, tea, and nuts. So what's interesting with phytate is it also acts as an antioxidant, and it can even improve the human glucose response. So it's really not known how much nutrient loss actually occurs when we consume anti-nutrients. So you can actually decrease the loss though by boiling, soaking, or sprouting certain foods like beans. And then studies show that our gut may actually adapt to these anti-nutrients by increasing the absorption of certain minerals. Okay. Oops. All right, so myth number 14 is that low fat or fat-free foods are healthier than full fat. You can just see here an example of some fat-free, low-fat foods, pretty popular in the 90s. So just know that foods labeled as reduced fat or fat-free often contain additives like chemical fillers, sugar, and salt, just to make those foods taste better because they're lacking the fat. And fat-containing foods are not bad for you. Just remember that. Focus on incorporating heart-healthy fats like monounsaturated fats, polyunsaturated fats. And with these fat-free foods, studies show that people tend to eat twice the amount just because they're not as satisfying. So if you want to eat the full fat version, please do so. And if you happen to like the taste of low fat or fat-free versions, you can totally do that as well. All foods can be part of a balanced diet. Okay. Myth number 15 is that it's better to fast than to eat breakfast. All right, so although fasting has a lot of benefits, so there's a lot of studies coming out saying it could increase fat loss, maybe it could improve cognitive function, increase longevity, could have positive effects on diseases such as diabetes and certain types of cancer, but there are conclusive studies showing that people who eat breakfast are more likely to consume the recommended amounts of vitamins and minerals, and they're less likely to overeat because they're getting in that breakfast in the morning, kind of spreading out those calories throughout the day. So there's still a lack of data pointing to an ideal fasting regimen. But like I said, there is conclusive data that backs the benefits of consuming breakfast. And there totally might be benefits to intermittent fasting and breakfast. In fact, there are. So just do whatever works best for you, whatever makes you feel better. That's the bottom line. All right, myth number 16 is that the food pyramid is realistic. So the food pyramid was introduced in 1992 by the USDA, and it has since been replaced with the MyPlate model. So with the original food pyramid, the idea behind it was to make sure that the Americans were getting enough calories. And that's why I'm going to toggle back here. That's why you can see that the bottom chunk of the food pyramid is carbohydrates, because those are an easy source of calories. And so now we know, though, that with carbohydrates, it's important to focus on whole grains, make half your plate whole grains. And the food guide pyramid didn't emphasize that before. So with the MyPlate model, toggle here, you can see that this is the current recommendation. So making half of your plate whole grains, fruits and vegetables, and then a quarter grains and a quarter protein with some fats and some dairy. Okay, so myth number 17 is that fruits and smoothies have too much sugar. So yes, it is true that fruit has sugar, but it is chock full of fiber and phytochemicals, minerals, and vitamins. So if you're concerned about sugar, the fiber in fruit also helps slow the rise of blood sugar. You can also pair this with some protein or fat to even further keep that blood sugar level steady. So with smoothies, though, they can be a great meal or snack. They're fiber-packed, nutrient-dense. And like I said, you can add a protein, like maybe protein powder or Greek yogurt to smoothies to make it more balanced. And then maybe instead of juice, you could try using milk or water. And just for your reference, the dietary guidelines for Americans do recommend we consume about 2 cups of fruit per day for overall health. Okay, so we are already at our last myth, myth number 18, and that is that chocolate causes acne, excuse me. So there's really no evidence that states that cocoa beans, from which chocolate's made, causes acne. But there is some evidence that might imply sugar could cause acne. And that's typically if you're consuming sugar in large quantities. So when you consume sugar in large quantities, that might increase inflammation in the body, and thus that could result in some skin problems like acne. But that does not mean you need to cut chocolate out of your diet. Can totally be part of a balanced diet. And if you're looking for added nutrients, you can try choosing some dark chocolate that has some added minerals like iron and magnesium and zinc, and some great antioxidants. Okay. Well, that was our last myth. So I really appreciate you guys joining us for our first Nutrition Mythbusters. And looks like we have some time for some questions, comments at the end. And so just one quick note though, if you guys could fill out the evaluation survey. Linda, are you sending that to them?
I will be sending it out right after the webinar.
Yeah, if you guys could fill that out, if you get the chance, we would really appreciate it. And again, thanks for joining us.
Does anybody have any questions while we have one coming in that asks, are oats too bad for pre-diabetes?
Thanks for that question. So oats are great, I feel like, for diabetes. They have fiber, they have some protein, they're a whole grain. If you're concerned about their impact on your blood sugar, maybe just consume them in the recommended amount. So maybe start with a 4th cup of oats or a 1/2 cup of oats. You can also pair your oats. If you're making an oatmeal, you could add in some protein powder, and you could add in some almond butter. Making sure that you pair carbs with a fat and protein is what's really important if you have pre-diabetes.
Thank you, Emma. We have another question. That actually there's a quick follow-up to that one. Do you have a suggestion for protein powder?
So I would love to get back to you and to send you some specific recommendations for protein powder, but I feel like there are some good ones at Costco. I mean, basically with all protein powders, just look at the ingredients. I mean, just make sure there's not too many added chemicals. So I think those can be hard to read too. For you though, I would say make sure that it's low in sugar, maybe has some fiber too. It is a good source of protein, but there's a good one at Costco. It is a collagen protein. My grandpa also has pre-diabetes, so he uses this in his smoothies. So if you ever happen to go to Costco, I would grab their collagen protein powder because that's a good one.
I've grabbed his name, so
Okay.
the person's name, so that we can get back to them. Also, we had a question about if you have any thoughts around probiotics and prebiotics.
Yeah, so there's foods that can naturally contain probiotics and prebiotics. Some examples are maybe you've heard of kefir. It's like a milky yogurt. I actually put it on my dog's food because it's a great source of probiotics. And so those can be really beneficial for gut health. And then as far as prebiotics, there are lots of foods. Pretty sure, Linda, with this, it's like cruciferous veggies have prebiotics. Those are good sources as well. I feel like if you're consuming a variety of foods, you're getting in enough of those good sources of gut healthy bacteria. Not sure what your thoughts are though, Linda.
Oh, I completely agree. And the fermented foods, like what you mentioned, are a great way to get an extra dose of those probiotics. And then the good bugs like to eat good food. So really it's the fruits, the vegetables, the grains, those whole foods that feed the bugs, and they get sick off of too much sugar, too much fat, too much, salty foods. So definitely I agree with you, Emma. We have another question about people at the gym are taking all kinds of digestive enzymes and supplements. They claim that we need these to help lose weight. What do you think?
So digestive enzymes, they certainly don't result in weight loss. That's not really the purpose of them. The purpose of them is to help break down foods better for your body, maybe causes less digestive or GI upset. I've used them before because I have a sensitivity to cruciferous vegetables, and they do seem to help. But in terms of weight loss, I wouldn't recommend them. That's basically my answer though. Not sure what the other supplements are though, but as far as digestive enzymes, if you want to try them, that's great. But they're not really used for weight loss.
Yeah, and I think of the lactase, to digest lactose in lactose intolerant people as a good example of what that might do. But really your body typically, it secretes all the enzymes that you need. So I've heard of those before, and I haven't been able to find any credible evidence that they actually make it into the body where they can be utilized.
Mhm.
So it almost feels kind of like a fad, definitely to me.
Right.
Another question, do you have any, is there a better, or what is the best source of protein for a protein powder? Because there's whey, soy,
Mhm.
there's several different types of protein.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's pros and cons to each, I think, but that really depends on what you like best, I think, and what
Mhm.
digests best for you. Because some people might have a sensitivity to digesting whey or soy. And so I think you should maybe try different types if you're willing to, and just see what tastes best for you and what makes you feel best. I really don't have a specific recommendation as to which one's better.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Emma, and taking advantage of foods that have protein as well, because typically we get so much extra protein that it might be better for us to just actually focus on eating more fruits and vegetables, or something that we aren't meeting the recommendation on. Plus, they're expensive. I don't like to buy the stuff in the jars and the cans that are,
Right.
kind of manufactured as supplements. Is there any correlation of soy ingestion and bad or better menopause side effects?
So I won't speak to this too much, but I've heard both sides that consuming soy could potentially increase your risk of breast cancer, but I don't know enough about it. So Linda, do you have any?
The research just does not back up the idea that the phytoestrogen effect of soy is harmful,
Mhm.
right? And I review that, gosh, probably every year, just to make sure that something hasn't changed and gotten past me. And the menopause reactions are so individualized that if you find something that works for you, keep doing it. Maybe share it with others so they can give it a try and see if it works for them. Chris, I have a fact sheet on soy that I'm happy to send you as well. Just going to make a note. I have been told that bananas add to your waistline. True or false? That's a
I
good
should
myth
have
to
busted
bust.
that myth. Yeah, so that's not true. Bananas are a great source of nutrients, as are all fruit, and they're certainly part of a healthy diet. If you're eating maybe 20 bananas a day, maybe I would say back off a little on the bananas. But no, there's no reasoning as to why bananas would increase weight unless you're just eating too many, so your calories are over than what your body needs. But otherwise, please eat your bananas.
Anybody else have anything? I don't see any more questions coming through. Thank you so much for coming, Emma. Emma and I will hang out here for a little while in case anybody wants to stay and talk to us about any myths that they want busting. And I hope that you all have a great day. We'll be emailing out both the recording and the link for the survey. So thanks for coming today.
Yeah, thank you guys.